All right, we have everybody?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, we got Tom, we got Mike. All right. Well, at least you guys do, if you're not gonna be on the screen, at least have a nice picture. With that being said, it is approximately 6:10 in the PM. Today is Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020. We're here at the notice of a special meeting / workshop. With that being said, this meeting is called to order. Let's start with our opening prayer. We start with the Pledge of Allegiance. In the prayer, let's have Pledge of Allegiance led by Director Dr. Young.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you. With that being said, we have Elder Townsend from Sunrise Church here to give us a prayer. Elder
Can you hear
me? Yes. Okay, now we can hear you.
All right. Are we ready to pray?
We can't see you, but we can hear you. We see the roof, but there you go.
Okay, let's pray.
All right.
Our Father God, we thank you so much for just this opportunity you gave us to come together, just to talk about the business for Rialto Water District. And we ask, Father, that you just continue to be with us, be with each and every one of those that are on the panel, Father, the directors, all of those that make decisions for the Water District, Father, and just help them just to be mindful of just who you are, and that we might make decisions that will be and will benefit just everyone, Father, and that will just cause peace to be among each and every person that is in our district. We thank you, Father, for the opportunity that we have, that we can come together, that we can talk to you, that we can even talk to each other about the issues that are going on, and that we can get in front of any problems that we have. And we just, again, ask for your guidance in all that we say and all that we do. We ask you to bless each and every person that is represented, that is listening in, that's at the Water District itself, Father. And we ask that you just bless them. We ask that you protect them, protect their families, Father, in all the things that they do, Father, and for just all the things that are going on in our world. We just want to quickly ask, Father, that you just help us just deal with this pandemic that's going on. Help us find a cure for that, Father. Help us that we might be able just to come back together and to be like family, just come together so we can enjoy each other's company. We ask that you be with us tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Let us all say amen.
Amen. All right. With that being said, Mr. Faruqi, public participation.
Under the State of California Ground Act, the Board of Directors is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any items not listed on the posted agenda. Comments related to notice public hearing of business matters will be heard during the occurrence of the item. In an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and according to the Governor's executive order and the order of the County of San Bernardino dated March 17, 2020, there will be no public locations for attending the special board meeting in person. Members of the public may listen and provide public comment via telephone by calling the following number and access code: 888-475-4499. Access code is 807-977-6383. Or you may join the meeting using Zoom. Also, it is actually on our district website.
Good evening, President Hawkins, members of the board, and members of the public. This is public comment for those individuals that are online on Zoom or have called in via Zoom. Please, this is the time for public comment. Please go ahead and unmute yourself. We'll give you 2 seconds. Again, this is time for public comment. If you are online and you would like to go ahead and provide a public comment, this is the time.
This
that concludes public comment. We did not receive any communication via email, and concludes public comment, sir.
All right, thank you. With this being said, I would, request, a motion to adopt the agenda. The only thing is this, reform plan, I am requesting that we have the naming policy, we address that first, and everything related to reform. So the presentation, item 2 and 3, we deal with that second, if that's possible for everybody.
So moved.
All right,
And I think we need to roll call.
we need a roll call, yes, I'm sorry.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Present.
Director Greg Young,
Here.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Here.
Vice President Kyle Crowder,
Present.
and President Shannon Hawkins.
Here. Okay,
I'll move the agenda as you suggested.
okay.
Second.
And seconded by Dr. Young. Then moved and seconded. Secretary Ashe, call for the vote.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Yes.
Vice President Kyle Crowder,
Yes.
and President Shannon Hawkins.
Yes. So, before we get right into the naming policy, I do want to acknowledge, both, Director Young, Secretary Ashe, and Vice President Crowder for, really working on developing this policy and getting it something that we can work off of. I know that we had a lot of community voices regarding what we would do with our agency, and I do want to acknowledge their leadership in making this happen and being able to get us something that we can really talk about. So thank you, Director Young, Vice President Crowder, Secretary Ashe for putting this all together. So, being that, Greg did do, the heavy lifting on this, if, I don't know if everyone has a discussion, this is more, unlike our normal agenda where we just kind of get down to the nuts and bolts. This is more of a workshop review type of thing. And so because this is something that Greg put forward, if you don't mind leading us through this conversation, and if there are questions that.
I mean, I can maybe just give a quick synopsis of kind of what you're looking for.
Yep.
Yeah, so, Vice President Crowther and I kind of talked about, this particular topic, after some of our previous discussions. And, really kind of what we kind of wanted to do was to set a policy or to at least come up with a draft of a policy that really was community driven, was one of the big things which we cared about. And then also one that sets a attainable yet high bar for any potential for naming of facilities, especially since as a water agency, we don't really have a whole lot of assets that would probably even be warranting being named after someone. So we kind of broke it up into a few different areas. So in section 2, we kind of lay out a process by which the general manager and staff would prepare a list on an annual basis of facilities that we would then as a board review as far as facilities which are eligible to be named after.
Okay.
And so we set some criteria for what that needs to be. And again, it's probably not going to be a fairly long list because we probably don't have a lot to begin with. Then the next section is we created a nomination process, again, community driven. But one thing which we wanted to be as a part of the conversation is because we are elected by divisions, we wanted to see that there's at least some crossover amongst at least 3 of the 5 divisions. So most of the nominations can come from one district, but that there at least needs to be 3 unique ratepayers who sign a petition from at least 3 of the 5 divisions. So that was part of the nomination process. Then we get into what occurs after the nomination process, where essentially the general manager would convene a committee, a citizen committee, made up of the general manager, a representative of the employees, because we feel that they need to have a say in this as well. So a representative selected by the employees themselves, and then one community member from each of the 5 divisions appointed by the various directors. And then it would be that committee's job to, based on a set of criteria which we established here in the policy, basically review the nominations, hear from the people who are putting the petition forward, hear their side of it, and then deliberate based on that criteria, and then whether they decide to move it to the next stage or not, there's a process for that, which would ultimately go to 2 public hearings, and then finally the full board would act after the second hearing. So that's essentially what we kind of have talked about and put together before you. And Kyle, is there anything I missed on that? I think I kind of hit the high point.
Yeah, no, I think you kind of went over everything pretty good, just to try and make it as transparent as possible. And once again, as Director Young and I discussed when, we were often in this is just kind of just to basically start the conversation and the process and kind of work through it in this workshop.
And again, I want to thank you guys for taking hold of this and taking ownership and really just showing leadership on this. So I can't thank you all enough for taking care of this.
Yeah, so again, we're just kind of putting the forward into a question.
Now, the matter of procedure, everything tonight is for discussion. However, if there's a level of consensus, we will put it on our next board agenda. And so to allow for any changes or reflections, I look here, and I know you all, as part of the process, just for the record, you all researched other water agencies and other public agencies and their naming policies, right? This wasn't just created out of thin air.
Well, it was largely created kind of off of our idea of what it was we were looking for, but yes, we did review the ones which Peggy had provided, but largely we felt those were pretty fair and really didn't have a whole lot to them, and we kind of wanted something a little more substantial. And again, particularly the community involvement piece was not a part of any of the other policies. And I think you were only able to find one valve of water related to, I mean, obviously a school has a lot of access. Every time they build a school, it's named after someone.
Right.
Every time they build a field, it's named after someone. So, we were hoping for more water, but I know Peggy tried her best, and there just wasn't much out there.
I did call it other water agencies local, and they do not name their facilities after a person. Street names or.
And so I do think that, in a matter of due diligence, thank you, Peggy, for doing the due diligence for other water agencies. And then, because I think it's important in the record that we did do our research and we went out, and it was a very deliberative, yes. And however, Kyle and Greg did their part in catering something that fits the needs of our agency. And so, I just want that as part of the record. There was research that was done amongst the industry out there, and the changes that they wanted reflected having community involvement and support as part of the process, and really grounding this agency so it's reflective of the values of our ratepayers. So I thank you guys for that. Are there any, I've had a chance to look at it. I may have 2 small little things, but Dr. Young, were you about to say something?
No, I was going to move it to I had a chance to review this bureaucratic, am I on?
Yeah, no, so you'll.
I had a chance to review this, what I call a bureaucratic procedure and getting something done, and I'm prepared to move it to the full board for consideration.
Okay. All right. And before we take that motion, is there any other commentary, I have 1 or 2 tweets, but any other commentary? So, because that's a motion, I guess we're having a discussion on the motion now. Oh, well,
Why don't we do the question?
why don't we do the question first, or we can just, okay, so, Mike and Kyle, do you all have anything you wanted to add to this process?
You're talking about the naming of facilities that we have?
The naming policy before we can name anything, and whether the recommendation that was put forth by Greg and Kyle, whether you have any questions or anything you want to add to it.
No, I don't have any questions about it. It looks pretty thorough.
It looks good. Mr. General Manager, I know it's hard for you to do a number of things, so you before we can even get started, you would have to account for what can even be named. Do you have any questions or concerns, Raj? Okay, all right. Kyle, I assume you don't have any questions, or there's no one?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, all right. The only thing I have here is for under 3.4A.
3.4A.
This is the candidate be widely known within the water industry and West Valley Water District community. The only thing I would say is and or, because you may have somebody who's known at West Valley, but only thing is and or. But I think that as long as that's there,
I would not go opposed.
okay. And then the only other one, the candidate should either work for or serve the district in an official capacity.
What title is that?
That's A, and then there's B. Part B, also part 3.4B.
Well, and what I would just say to that is, the operative word is should.
Mhm.
I think in most cases, or at least historically, the only person we've ever named anything after was the former board president. Long-term board president.
Mhm.
I don't think, do you remember how many years he was on the
Oh,
board?
it's up here on the wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, I would think that, as Kyle and I were talking,
Mhm.
who would probably fit in the mold is probably going to be someone who either worked at the district for a very long time and or served the district in some official capacity. So again, I would say the key word is should. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to, but just that, obviously we are a water district. We probably want to try to focus on people who actually have an impact for the district itself. But again, I would say the operative word is should. It doesn't necessarily mean
It's not
it
shall.
shall or must.
Mhm.
Yeah, Kyle, do you have any other thoughts on that? That's kind of the way I would look at it.
I'm okay with it. I think should is a little more flexible than shall. So I think it's nothing
Yeah.
concrete. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with trying to make things as flexible and, workable as possible as to making things concrete with words like shall. So I'm okay with being flexible. Every situation is going to be different.
Every
But the
situation.
wording there should,
It should,
not shall.
not shall, and that's a.
Right. It is should. And that's why I like the way it should. So it's flexible. It's not concrete.
Yeah. It's like 75% shall. It's not may, it's should, but it's not shall. Somewhere in there.
Oh, it says the candidate should either, there's one thing, the candidate should either have worked for or served the district in official capacity.
So you want to add the word
Have,
should have?
no, should, the candidate should either
Have
have
worked.
worked, yeah. And then,
And I wouldn't have any issue with have.
yeah, that's all right.
Kenny?
That's small potatoes there. I think, Mike, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, I'm trying to say something. The one thing I do have a little problem with in this one area is it says serve the district in an official capacity. What does that mean, official capacity? Because you might have somebody that's done something very beneficial for the district, and not work for the district, but was of such great service that you'll want to honor them with something like this. But this official capacity, what does that mean?
I would think that official capacity could, again, mean multiple things. I mean, and again, you know, the committee's gonna have to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, you know, for anyone which comes in as a nomination. But again, you know, that could be construed to be a board member who's president in official capacity. It could be, again, someone who, you know, worked in the district. Could have been maybe someone who was, for example, if we establish something like this, you would have like a citizen committee, maybe in time, someone who served on that committee as an appointee for a long time, that could be construed as an official capacity. So, I mean, I think it's very flexible, you know, so that they can evaluate each situation.
Yeah. Greg, here's the only problem I have with this one particular wording is, you know, like the Constitution, we'll all be the founding fathers of this document once we sign it, and it's going to be open for interpretation and down the road, and they're going to go back, try to figure out what our frame of mind was. As you're explaining, it seems a little bit more open, but I think it could be reworded just a little bit to give a little bit more flexibility. Nothing too drastic, but just something a little bit looser in that area to give it a little bit more flexibility.
So what would you suggest then, Mike?
Well, I would say probably take the word out, official capacity, and put something in there that says in a capacity, you know, that in such a capacity that would for any extended period of time that would benefit the district, something of that nature.
Maybe the word significant.
Instead of official, just substitute out significant
Capacity.
Is that what you're
What about significant instead of official, Mike?
Yeah, something like that. This gives a little bit more flexibility. When you have the word or the term official in there, it makes it sound so it had to be basically an employee, period. And I mean, that's the way I read into it. And, you know, 20 years, 30 years down the road, when they look at this document, they may try to go back and interpret it like that's what they were thinking when they wrote this document, that nobody else other than somebody who worked for the district shall receive, name one of the facilities after them, period.
You got a definition problem, just like you have a definition problem. Significant could be anything anybody who wants to name. That's significant. You walk into a meeting and sit down and listen to them.
I think some of the criteria set out here, you got to get through the committee. I don't think one or two times we've got a meeting would probably get you there. It would have to be something where this group would be able to come together and all sit eye to eye and say, this is what we agree on.
They still have to be vetted by the committee, and the committee's going to make use their own value judgment of what they consider to be significant. So one person from one district would be like, yeah, I think so-and-so has significant, the other may disagree. So, I mean, it's still got to go through the citizen-driven panel.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
But yeah, no, I mean, I'm okay changing official to significant.
Okay.
I think.
Official or significant service or right there.
Significant is if you put it on the measurable scale, is 0.05.
You know, I think significant.
I mean, that's a scientific definition.
You know what? I agree with you on this. I think significant is a good word, and it'll be up to whoever judges whatever their contribution is, whether or not it's significant enough to meet the criteria that they establish for naming a facility or a building or whatever it is. Somebody.
Yeah, significant, what about significantly serve the ratepayers? That's one. But I think
that if you just take it out,
significant
block
is enough.
the two words.
That gives us enough.
I think it still covers it.
Yeah, I think that, let me see, one last thing. What position has verified nomination as requisite, manager shall convene representative and,
And I would change the extended period to any period of time. I mean, you could have somebody that comes into the district and he wants to donate a tremendous amount of funds to build something that's going to benefit the water district and the community. You may want to name something after this person in honor of what he's done. So, I would be a little bit more general.
I didn't quite understand.
Mike, what section are you talking about?
same,
Same section?
Mhm. If you're not talking, please put your, microphone on mute.
Did you get that, what I said?
No.
Yes, repeat it again, Mike?
Yeah, I would say, I would also say, where it says for an extended period of time, I would change that to any period of time.
For any period of time?
Because, they can make a significant contribution, and it could be in a short period of time or an extended period of time. So you can't really put a time frame on that.
I don't know if I quite agree with that.
Well, that's why we're talking about it. I mean, if that with that change in there, I could vote for something like this.
Well, I think in retrospect to what Dr. Taylor's talking about, I think if it were to be somebody individually based on a financial contribution they made to the district, say they, I don't know, donated enough money to buy a building or whatever the case may be, you could argue that that would be, let's see, what's the wording?
Significant.
Significant. Thank you. It'd be a significant amount of time because that's going to benefit the district for years and decades to come. So either way, it's fine. I get where Mike's going with it. We want to make sure we're general and flexible as well, because like I said earlier, every situation is going to, dictate itself. It's hard to make this black and white as well.
Well, maybe the thing to do is then just to strike the whole back half of that, what it says for an extended period of time. You can just say the candidate either have worked for or served the district in a significant capacity, period.
That sounds fine. I could go with that.
Sounds good to me.
All right,
And then we can let
the whole thing go.
Okay, my motion is on the floor.
All right, his motion is on the floor.
Do I have a second?
Yes. Secretary Ashe called for the vote. Did you get the two minor tweaks, the and or for section A?
I also wrote it down.
Okay, yes. All right. Okay. All right. Secretary Ashe called for the vote.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford,
Yes.
Vice President Carol Carter,
Yes.
and President Kent.
Yes. All right. The only thing I was, I guess that'll kind of be there. This, I'm hate to do this now. And this isn't like I guess it's in the record. This isn't like a constant. type of thing. This is like, after this to get, like, we shouldn't be naming every week, right?
Oh, no, we don't have enough things to name.
Well, like I
Okay,
said,
right.
we'll first adopt a list, and then, again, people have to go through the process.
Okay.
And again, it's only if they succeed through the process, does it come to the full board.
How many
Okay.
places you
But I don't-
got to name, about 3 or 4, 2?
Yeah, it's not gonna be
Well,
very.
yeah, but just,
Yeah, I did credit for it, we could do that,
but it's, okay, that just may be something that we end up coming back and thinking, because it shouldn't happen, like, all the time.
I don't know, I'd be surprised if it happens, once every few years, honestly, because again, in theory, you shouldn't really have too many
Right.
of these instances come up.
Oh, right, but I'm just making sure, I don't know, does this count as part of the minutes? Just make sure we're getting there in case they come back, they didn't keep, the Federalists, Mike brought up the Constitution and called us the founding fathers, and so now I'm feeling like the Federalist Papers are supposed to get to.
We're studying the process.
Nobody on this board is old enough to be a founding father.
Well, I mean, he put us in light of the founding fathers, I felt like, Sam Adams or something.
Well, we would be here for a week.
Okay, so we got that done. That's a good thing. Now we're on the road to actually figuring out what we're going to do with our policies. Now, our next phase of this meeting, everybody, we do, I know probably we're going to try to get out of here hopefully around 8 o'clock. So Nasim, I know next up is the reform portion of this meeting, where we're going to talk about all the different reforms, but just a caveat with that as well. I want to applaud again the directors of West Valley Water District. All of us have at some point come together and have made different recommendations and suggestions on what we need to do here at the district to improve its services and make it higher performing and better performing and more responsive to the needs of our ratepayers. I want to thank our staff who took the time to prepare this PowerPoint and some of the recommendations that they believe that we as an agency should adopt. There are 3 major areas. One is dealing with the board reforms, there's financial accountability reforms, and some dealing with our sustainability as West Valley Water District. And so I thank you all, because I know there were a number of meetings early in the morning to kind of distill this down. Also know that there have been some reforms that we've already had, particularly our CFO has put a number of items forward in front of the board that we've already adopted, that may already be discussed tonight. I know from our trainings with the SDLS and their governance training particularly, that has informed some of the reforms that we will adopt tonight. In addition to that, I do also want to take the time to give particular note to Cal, Vice President Prado, as well as Director Greg Young, for putting forward a number of other additional recommendations, particularly something that we have needed, which is a set of reforms, particularly a manual for the board, which has been needed. It's something that needed to be adopted. I know when I got on this board, there was no manual. There wasn't a whole lot of organization. But I want to thank them because they have served on this board. They have overseen a lot of the changes that we're implementing now, and their recommendations regarding having that manual is much needed. And I just want to give a shout out and recognition for the work that you all are doing. In addition, and I know they also worked on what would be Board Policy 86. Correct. Ordinance 86, which I didn't know what it was, but then, you know, I had to go to Peggy. She always helps me out when I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, well, every time there's an update to the board policy, they have a new number. Because I was like, it was only 85. And I was like, what's this 86? And so that's significant too, because it modernizes our policy and brings it up to date and addresses some of the issues that we've had and sets us on a new path. And I just, you know, with my colleagues, I just really thank them for taking ownership of us reforming this agency. I know we still have some work to do, but it's a team effort and all of us working together. And I just really want to thank Vice President Crowther and Director Young for what they've done on this effort. So with that being the case, I do want to say for everybody, there may be some things that, you know, eventually, there may be some things that are said in more than one document. So where we can, hopefully it'll just be said in one place. So there will be that part where we kind of look and say, oh, well, that's over here versus over there, or, you know, something already has been adopted. So have the expectation there will be a little bit of, you know, overlap with some of this stuff. But with all that being said, hopefully by the end, our staff, our general manager, our CFO, our general counsel, and others will right the ship and give us all the stuff that we really need. I also want to thank the Public Affairs Department for taking particularly the staff recommendations and putting it in this really nice PowerPoint. It is really stands out. And so Mr. Faruqi and your staff and team, thank you for doing that. So with that being the case, I think let's get the presentation for the West Valley Water District 12-point plan for reform and the water agency you deserve. So who's doing that? Who's doing the presentation? I think that's Ricky. Mm-hmm.
About to do rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. I don't know, can does the audience, do they see it as okay, you're doing that screen sharing thing? Okay.
All right, good evening, board, staff, residents. Ricky Manahal, Chief Financial Officer for the West Valley Water District. I am going to go through this reform plan, but before I start, I'm going to add some context so board members and staff and residents will understand how we got here. Back in February of this year, we were holding weekly meetings amongst the district management team, supervisors, to formulate or come up with ideas to create efficiencies. And we looked at processes and procedures that we were currently doing and trying to identify some of those areas that we can improve on, and also look at some of the things that were working and try to put that together to see what's working and what's not working, and then also look at some of the needs going forward. So that's basically the mentality behind this whole reform plan. And we looked at it from a bottom-up approach. We looked at, you know, the operation from the line, production line, if you want to so call it, or the operation line, all the way up into the management arena and the decision-making format. So with that, we met for several months actually, and President Shannon Hawkins participated in some of those meetings, and we've had some lengthy and very healthy discussions. We took feedback and input from everyone, and then from there we started narrowing down some of the ideas and some of the things that we felt will be significant in a reform or change environment. Right? So the 12-point plan, what it does, it provides accountability, transparency, and sustainability for the district. And those are the categories that we identified based on the areas we've looked at. The introduction, I just talked about it, so I'll read it. Earlier this year, department managers outlined new strategies and tactics to improve efficiencies and integrity of the agency's operations. Managers work closely with their staff to develop plans and clearly define objectives and matrix for success. As a result of this bottom-up process, staff generated a series of reforms that affect nearly every level of West Valley Water District's operations. The 12 core reforms are official initiatives grouped into 3 categories, like I mentioned before: A, transparency; B, accountability; and C, sustainability. And I'll pause every so often to chime in. Transparency, as we are in the process with the SBLA, we've obtained our certificate, and in our accountability, we are also developing policies and procedures, and we are holding folks accountable for their actions. And then sustainability is to maintain what we've already put in place and continue on to build on that. So number one goal is to get it done. And this is an accountability reform, and each goal, we've labeled it to which criteria they fit into. To get it done, the Get It Done initiative will require WVWD to create and approve a strict budget calendar for the fiscal year with firm dates that will help hold board and staff members accountable to their roles, responsibilities, and obligations. By approving the budget calendar, the WVWD board will approve financial issues on an annual basis rather than review them and approve each transaction individually, a system that has prolonged the budget process and led to missed deadlines historically. So, like President Hawkins mentioned, some of these things are already in place, and some of them we're working on. The budget calendar, as you remember, I started last year, and I applaud everyone for us to stick to the schedule. We did, and we adopted our budgeted time. It also provided for our ratepayers and viewers, give them a schedule if they wanted to participate in the workshops as well. So, number 2 is another accountability reform, new rules, no exceptions initiative. The lack of an accounting manual was a deficiency outlined in fiscal year 2018-19 audit. To counter this issue, the new rules, no exceptions initiative creates a manual of accounting practices that manages and protects assets while outlining required controls for all staff who interact with finance. This initiative also requires staff to regularly update the manual and keep it current with industry best practices. And as you all know, I took on that initiative. We have all of these policies drafted, and I've already presented 4 policies that the board adopted and approved. So thanks again for that, and we're on our way to getting that completed. Number 3 is Controls Against Errors and Abuse initiative, and it's also an accountability reform. I didn't realize it's up there. The Controls Against Errors and Abuse initiative requires annual rigorous reviews of finance department staff roles and responsibilities. The auditors conducting the fiscal year 2018-19 review found some segregation of duties issues for accounting and contracts, and segregation or separation of duties is the assignment of various steps in a process to assign it to different people. Segregation of duties is important and serves 2 key purposes: ensures that there is oversight to catch any errors, and helps to prevent fraud by eliminating the possibility of one person having the sole responsibility of doing conflicting tasks. So as you may recall, again, here's another one that we took action on back in March. The board authorized me to manage the purchasing department so it can be segregated and out of the control of managers that, would circumvent that process. So that's That's fixed, it's working well. We've also segregated and are working on standard operating procedures for each staff member in accounting, in customer service, in purchasing, and I believe in human resources, also in IT. So these are all things that are in place that will eliminate or at least prevent any fraudulent activities. In my accounting department, there are segregation of duties which we have to comply with from a general accounting principles practice standpoint. So that's with me being fully staffed now in the accounting department, I think we're good there. And the auditors will be pleased. But this is a really good first preview because our auditors are scheduled to be here in about a month, so we can just have them take a look at this. The number 4 is the election fairness reform initiative, and this is also an accountability reform. Under the election fairness reform initiative, West Valley Water District will further cap individuals and household campaign contribution limits to board member campaigns. The limits will comply with state election rules, empower ratepayers, and further limit the influence of wealthy donors, powerful corporations, and special interests. This new initiative will ensure greater financial transparency, reduce outsider influence, and create a more equitable system for ratepayers. Number 5 is the Professional Services Opportunity Pool Initiative, another accountability reform. Under the Professional Services Opportunity Pool Initiative, West Valley Water District will create a pool of pre-qualified, pre-negotiated professional service providers. This pool will create a pre-approved group of vendors for services like general maintenance, accounting, legal work, except our general counsel, of course. A committee of employees will select firms to be available at a pre-negotiated rate, which will both result in lower costs for ratepayers and allow West Valley Water District to quickly react to situations if we need a specific type of work to be done. This is a very, very interesting initiative because we can pre-negotiate costs of getting work done. Number 6 is the board member responsibility and accountability policy. It is another accountability reform. The new board member responsibility and accountability policy is an unprecedented policy effort to help ensure board members are held responsible and accountable for their actions. The policy authorizes West Valley Water District to penalize board members' responsibility of misconduct by removing them from committees and stripping them from their ability to represent the agency outside of West Valley. These are the strongest possible penalties West Valley Water District can apply to board members. Removal from office is only legally permissible by electoral defeat, death, or resignation. Number 7 is financial reporting policy. Here's a transparency reform. And this is following up on the Get It Done policy. The financial reporting policy requires West Valley Water District to share a public annual budget calendar that lists important financial deadlines and financial reports and audits as well. So in addition to our budget calendar, we will also have other financial activities listed with the dates. Number 8 is a financial integrity reform policy, a rules policy, which is a transparency reform. Under a new set of financial integrity reform rules, West Valley Water District will issue a new credit card policy that will ensure the responsible users of the credit cards for board members, management, and staff. These new rules include clear fiscal limits. I think it just says, limitations, justifications for travel, training programs, and a more stringent value-focused approval process that requires receipts and expenditure reports. This set of reform rules also involves the implementation of a new purchasing policy that will streamline and centralize the paperwork, which the board has already adopted and approved, and that's in process right now. Number 9 is the 21st century digitization. My Indian accent is coming out. There's different words I can't say, right? This is a transparency reform. Under this initiative, West Valley Water District will bring the entire agency into the 21st century by scanning, storing, and consolidating digital copies of water supply source information, agreements, purchase records, and other documentations in a new digital records management system. The digitization process will help the public, board of directors, senior management, and staff members easily access important information about our water supply to also protect critical errors, records from being damaged, lost, or stolen. We've already started on some of this as we speak. But of course, there's a lot of documents that still need to get scanned and maintained. Number 10, Lyle Creek Sustainability Project Initiative is the sustainability reform. In water basins across the state, groundwater withdrawal often exceeds the amount that is replenished. The condition known as overdraft leads to higher energy use to pump from deeper wells, sinking land, reduced stream flow, and reduced water quality. Due to years of regional drought and population growth, the West Valley needs to find ways to replenish its basin. The Lyle Creek Sustainability Project Initiative directs West Valley Water District staff to conduct a groundwater study that explores ways to replenish the Lyle Creek groundwater basin. That's also a very positive thing going forward. Number 11 is Save and Sustain Our Water Initiative, another sustainability reform. In accordance with the state requirements, West Valley Water District will draft and enact a water efficiency program that reduces our water usage by 20% by the end of 2020. By reducing our water usage from 285 gallons to 232 gallons, West Valley Water District will transform the region's ecological footprint, allow for responsible growth, and help replenish basin groundwater. Number 12, sustainability reform, West Valley Water District Water Academy Initiative. Water use habits are set early in their life by encouraging, and I'm guilty, I take 30-minute showers.
Oh.
I got started like when I was 2, still going. Anyway, by encouraging water conservation at an early age, West Valley Water District can promote sustainability, reduce community water resource usage, and help ratepayers save money. Under this initiative, the agency will create an educational curriculum for our region's classrooms and communities. This initiative includes a water education mobile classroom trailer with interactive exhibits and displays to expand conservation programs' effectiveness in schools and community settings. And that concludes our 12-point plan for reform and the water agency reserve. West Valley is continuing to promote itself in an accountable, a transparent, and a sustainable fashion. Thank you.
Are we taking them one at a time? How do we want to?
Well,
I have some general comments.
Yeah, and I have a few too, but I just don't know.
yeah, I think we will take
Your mic.
kind of one of a, I don't know, because this is our first, I guess my first time. So what we'll do is just try to take them one at a time. If there are some general comments, please make some general comments, but, you know, this is an ambitious plan we have here. So, all right, so you want to make some general comments, please make them.
Yes, and some questions. I've read several versions of this. Is this the latest, the latest version of this? Is this it that we're looking at?
Yes, Director Young, this is the latest version.
Okay, and I understand that this came from staff, bubbled up from the staff.
Some items did come from staff.
Yes, there's two, I can say that came from a little nudge from me.
Okay.
I'll point out to the two that, hold on real quick, so you can know, so I only want staff to answer the staff question. This election fairness reform initiative and the board member responsibility, that came from a little nudge from me. The rest of it is all the staff.
Mr. General Manager, is this what you're endorsing?
I'm endorsing it.
Huh?
Yeah,
You are, you participated in this process.
yeah.
This is a general question. It seems as though to me, and I can read and analyze things, but a lot of these things, if you want me to point them out to you, is things that the staff is already doing. The budget calendar, we have it, but that's one example. I'm not necessarily addressing you, I'm addressing wherever this, some of these initiatives, which are initiatives, if we're not doing them, we should be doing them.
Exactly.
And I don't see how they come about as reform. And let me go through them. No? Let me go to the budget calendar, the accounting manual. I thought we approved to have an accounting manual.
We did.
The controls against errors. I thought we were supposed to be doing that. Are we not doing that?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Okay, the election reform is something else.
I mean, it seems like to me we are touting reforms which we've already put in place as well as.
The professor.
Some new.
Well, let's deal with the new ones.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Don't put in a package of reforms which are not reforms at all. The things that we've already adopted to do. Unless you're trying to pad a package or something. That's an academic term, by the way.
Yeah, it is. But
I just don't, I see the two that the president is claiming that he put in here is up for some discussion by this board. I don't agree with them, but I don't see the need here.
oh, well,
You've gotten us reading documents and going over things, and just repeated things that we're already doing. If we're not doing them, staff has a responsibility to do them. I know they've been to the board.
okay, well, Dr. Young, the thing is, you're correct in one sense. The reason
I'm correcting all my things, not just one, all my things.
okay, so what has happened is, part of this is, it was a very deliberative process that the staff went through, and as they met, they, as individual staff members, started proposing, so for instance, the manual situation that Rich proposed. He already, at the time that some of this was developed and came up with, he went and said that it's actionable now. So hold on, Dr. You have your opportunity to speak, everybody has your opportunity, we're okay. And so there are a number of things. So for instance, the budget calendar was not something, unfortunately, in the years prior, I don't know if it was followed or not. But when we go back to the audit situation and the time frame they were talking about, and some untimeliness that there was around some of the budget, that was something we adopted this year. What this policy intends to do is to make it permanent as far as what we do every year. That every year from now on, we will have that. I don't know if that was a practice
that has been the practice of the district. How permanent, you're talking, how permanent do you want to make it? We've made it permanent. We've had a budget challenge, only 1 year.
Or are we proposing to create a whole policy saying that we have to have? I mean, is that what you're saying here?
Greg Young is on point like a needle. Yes.
So he's saying we need to adopt a policy which ratifies our practice.
So every year, if something happened to you, the general manager, CFO, and there are all three, the new board members, new general manager, new CFO, they know this is what West Valley does. So that's the distinction, but yes.
Yeah, so can we go through them so we can go on?
Yes, yes. All right, so, and again, thank you guys for putting this forward, because it's important and it's valuable and it's helping our agency, so everyone would know what we're doing. So, number one, what do we got? What do we have?
I don't have any issues with number one, but again, just to be clear, so if we move this on to, say, another meeting to do, will we then be brought a written policy that would essentially do what's being proposed on the slide?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have no problem. I mean, again, it's something, again, we've talked about and that he did this past cycle, so I have no issue if we want to adopt a formal policy that is in line with what he's already doing.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that. This right here, it leaves no excuses for not doing it or not knowing that it was done and it should be done. It just solidifies our process, right? And it puts it in line with our accounting policies that we're putting together, the HR policies that we're putting together. The district, don't get me wrong, had policies in place, right, but didn't have any enforcement, let's say.
I'm going to say something my boss tells me all the time, don't oversell the clothes.
It's okay. It's okay. We're good. All right. Number two. This now, what did you have? I think we've adopted portions of this.
No, we adopted to have a consultant work with Ricky to put the manual together.
Yeah.
And we have been passing pieces of it.
Yeah. Agreed.
You've approved four policies already.
How many do we have left?
I think we've had about 8 or 9 of them left.
Okay.
So we're just incrementally building the manual together.
Yes, yes. Okay. I have them all written in draft format, and I have them presented to the committee.
Okay. No, I mean, I think this is pretty no-brainer.
All right.
Well, the committee didn't want them all at once.
No
problem.
That actually makes a lot of sense to do it like that.
Okay. Kyle and Mike, I don't know if you guys have any, I know. Do you guys have any questions for 1 or 2?
No, I'm
No,
good on 1 and 2.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for mine.
All right, so number 3, this one, now I did have a question. Controls against errors and abuse, how is this implemented? And what is happening now to ensure that there is this segregation of duties? How is this being implemented? Has it been implemented? Is there something else you need us to do?
Yes, there is segregation of duties. Remember a few meetings ago, I came to the board and I requested authorization to do transfers.
Yes.
I'll use that as a very good example. The reason I did that was to solidify the internal controls and the segregation of duties for making these transfers. As the CFO, I should not have the ability to go into our bank account and move money around. I will have staff prepare the entry. The accountant prepare the entry, the accounting manager will conduct the entry, the CFO will approve it, and then we get a printout of the transaction that's being presented to the board. So that's a good example of the segregation of duties. In the accounting department, we have accounts payable that just handles accounts payable. They don't do anything else because they could commingle and create, activities. Customer service receives payment, someone else deposits it, and someone else reconciles it. Purchasing, someone issues a PO, it's approved by someone else, and then ultimately approved by department head, CFO, or general manager. Our new financial system is in place, and we've already have these levels of authority or approval levels pre-established based on role. So, some examples of the segregation of duties and the internal control that's in place.
So you're asking for a new policy on this, or what?
No, we're not asking for any policy. Again, we're just explaining what's being done to address the issues in the audit. And then segregation of duties was one.
And a big part of this isn't really, as much as it's about the board members, it's about the public knowing that we have identified what the issues are that stem from the audit or other allegations, and that we actually have a plan and are implementing and addressing these issues. And our job as policymakers is to ensure these things are getting done. So I think in some ways we have taken action on these things. All we're doing now is codifying it, saying, okay, if there's some meat behind the bone, or if there's some further direction or authorization needed, we will, move that forward.
Why don't we just address the audit? It seems as though we're trying to go around, just straightforward address the audit.
I think I don't think.
That wasn't addressed,
Okay.
that was just a big chunk.
I will say this, I think we are addressing the audit. And I think staff has given us some recommendations to do that. We can have another hearing another day in regards to the audit as part of one of our meetings, though there hasn't been a sufficient response. But that's what our staff is trying to help us do, is to give us the tools so they can do it. So is there questions about number 3? So as far as the segregation of duties, has every at least reasonably, I know everything can't be perfect in a day, but has this been completed? Is it a work in progress? Where are we with the segregation of duties?
It's a work in progress. We are deeply involved in it. We're making very significant strides, but the system is also very new, and we have to work through some kinks, and it's working. That's what I can say right now. It's working. Our time entry system, for example,
Square.
is just seamless. It's paperless right now. It just goes through the approval chain, and it goes straight into payroll. They do their reconciliation and their process. So there's a lot of it that's actually working, but there are some pieces that we still have to kind of research and dig deeper into to get a better understanding of it. But the majority or the major pieces of it, from a financial standpoint, is not compromised, and it's working correctly.
Okay. Any other questions with that? Okay. Number 4, I will say that this was one I probably, and I think, number 4.
What does number 4 say?
Under the election fairness reform,
What does it say?
that what it says is that, as you may know, this year, it got derailed due to COVID-19. There's been not West Valley particularly, but in special districts. I think, what's his name? John, he has an evening talk show, I think it comes on HBO. He has a show, and with special districts, there's just a concern with contributions, how much are made, who's making them. And what this is giving us the ability to do is to address if there is anything related to any campaign finance issues. It gives us direction if we want to make a new policy. Now, I will say this, the majority, I think there's only out of the 2,000 special districts, or there's maybe 30 of them, 40 of them now, we have, some kind of campaign finance, and most of those are connected to really large entities. And so this is just giving us some insight if someone has perspective on whether, the influence that campaign donations have or don't have with this agency gives us an opportunity to address it.
Mr. President. So I think if any of us board members might have an axe to grind with special interest money, it's probably me after the way, particularly a tax came into my race and dropped about 10 different pieces of mail over a 8-week period. But with that being said, I'm not in favor of this. To me, on a philosophical level, I believe that this is silencing free speech. Now, I know in my community of Bloomington, I don't know where these wealthy donors are. If someone knows, please let me know, because pretty much I self-finance my own campaign with a few small donations and money from family. And yeah, there are sometimes special interests that may play in our elections, but actually, if you look at the history of our elections for this water district, that is by far the exception and not the rule. Generally speaking, our elections, while they sometimes get heated, they haven't been flooded by a tidal wave of outside money or super wealthy donors. I mean, I don't know if either of you gentlemen had any wealthy donors giving money to you, because I know I didn't. So to me, I hear what you're saying, and it's like I know, like some of the ones over in like Chino Basin, there's some wealthy landowners who really kind of play, down and dirty with some of those seats, and yeah, I think that this might make sense in other districts, but I don't really feel that this is really a problem for us at the moment, and it's really not something which I'm really sold on, to be perfectly honest about it. I mean, again, I think if we were like Met or, again, some of these agricultural-based districts that have big wealthy landowners who like to throw their money around, this might be something to consider, but for us, I mean, in Bloomington, we're about the fourth of the 5 districts, and I mean, there's really nobody lining up to be a wealthy donor. I mean, again, if you're out there, my phone number.
Let me speak a little bit this, Greg. We do have some special interest groups that donate significant amount of money to particular candidates. We have staff members who are donating significant amount of money to candidates. I look at the candidates' financial records, and some of it blows your eye. And, it's there. Now, whether I'm speaking out of 2 sides of my mouth now, whether we want to deal with it as an agency, I'm willing to fight it, without having to make a policy at the agency level, because it just goes against my political philosophy. People should be able to donate to campaigns and do whatever. I have a couple of people, but that gives $1,000 or so, but that's about it. So we have people receiving 10,000, 5,000. We have our attorneys who are trying to buy this district, who are putting in mega dollars into campaigns. That's just a fact. So if you're trying to tackle that issue, then maybe we have something to talk about. But the way this is worded, I don't see it doing anything.
Well,
I just, earlier draft of this had some numbers to it and limits to it, that may make sense to have a discussion about. But the way it's written here, it really doesn't say much.
Okay. Well, okay. Does anyone else have any, statements about or questions about number 4?
Mr. President? Mr. President,
Yes. Yes.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I gotta agree with both the Youngs. I don't think we should be in this, deciding who and how much they donate to any of our campaigns. That's just my personal opinion. And I believe that it's a constitutional right and that the district has no right to interfere with this process. I really like the way that Greg explained it when he had talked about, how it's up to everybody else basically to raise their own finances or whatever, or whoever wants to donate. And this is something that should be handled in the political realm outside of the district itself and its politics. And that's my opinion on this matter.
Okay. Kyle, do you have anything you want to say, or everything's been said?
I would have to say that everything has been said.
Okay. All right. Well, it is there. Hopefully at one point in the future we can come back to take up that particular initiative. Moving on, number 5.
Now, I have a question for number 5. Ricky, would you be able to answer this? So I know that a few years back, actually we did this in the engineering planning committee before you got here, but we kind of established a list of pre-qualified vendors, preferred vendors. I forget how we worded it.
Preferred vendors.
Yeah, but for certain tasks, this is the list. Now, we didn't take it as far as pre-negotiating prices, but I just want to be clear. So are we talking about going to that next step with the same list of people, or is this something completely different?
No, it is a little different.
Okay.
Same concept. We are not, those folks that are listed on our pre-qualified preferred vendor will have the opportunity to respond if they so choose to. But what we're hoping to do is to issue in a similar format as like maybe an RFQ, qualifications, proposals, and there's a scope of work and things of that nature, but in a simplified fashion, and have that in a database of preferred vendors with pre-negotiated rates.
Okay.
Already.
Because here's where I'm kind of losing that, because again, we've kind of done a little bit of a pre-qualified list, but that was very special circumstances, and then we still did RFQ, or RFP, for most of our activity. And for me, what makes me a little nervous about this is the idea that we're going to be establishing the price in a back room instead of doing a public RFP where we have to often choose the lowest qualified bidder. We set the terms that these are the qualifications that we're looking for, these are the deliverables, and we put it out for public bid. Now, for me, I think that that's much more transparent than a bunch of people. And again, I'm not trying to disparage or say anything nefarious, but I'm just thinking from a public transparency standpoint, this makes me a little nervous.
Well, what the part of this that makes me nervous is we have a pre-selected list and a negotiated bid. Then the employees make that decision. Why not bring that pre-selected list with the price and let the board approve that pre-selected list and then go on from there? That's what I read into this before I read the last 2 sentences.
And I think that's the direction we were focusing on.
And Greg, I think, what you guys did with the engineering committee, because when it comes to some of those construction contracts, because it is in law, state laws as a requirement, this takes that same approach, but now applies it to our, professional services contract, which technically under state law, do not have to be put out to bid, do not have to be based on the lowest price. And in some other agencies, particularly largest agencies, and when Ricky brought this, I think he said in the county of LA, and Clarence talked about it too, from their prior experiences with some of the professional services, particularly legal services and accounting, they'll have people who've already been vetted, so people aren't back there making one decision at a time. If the staff comes out, they're pre-vetted, they're all qualified, people know what the scope of work is. Now we're talking about in regard to professional services, and instead of them coming with a rate they may charge for a one-off price, accounting firm may charge X amount when you're doing service for the big corporation and it's one-off. Where with this, because we're a government contractor and because we're doing it beforehand, we're like, well, that rate that you usually charge, if you want to work with us, you're going to have to work for this rate here. And so it can be effective.
I get what you're saying. I mean, I guess for me, I would just really need to see this in writing, obviously, because again, I just have some concerns because again, to me, I think that the RFP process is generally serves us pretty well at this agency. And so if we are going to depart from that, I really want to see. But in these circumstances, and I understand we don't always do RFPs, but I prefer doing RFPs. I mean, I've been a big proponent for years of, hey, let's put this out to bid, but again, I would look forward to seeing more of the language when you put it together, Ricky, because I understand what you guys are trying to say. I'm not completely opposed, but I'm not completely sold either, is probably where I'm at.
I think if there's a board-approved pre-negotiated rate, you go through the process, you brought it to the board, and we approved it, I don't have any problems with it. I do have some, I'll bring this up later.
Okay. All right, Mike and Kyle, do you have anything that you want to add to this, for number 5, professional services, opportunity pool?
I like to have a pre-approved list just for emergencies, call-outs. I believe in the RFP. I got to agree with Greg on this, and I can't believe I'm agreeing with both the Youngs tonight. Yeah, I do believe the RFP method better. I like the flexibility. And in terms of having a list, the only list that I like is having a call-out list of pre-approves in case of an emergency. And I think we already have that, but I don't remember.
Yes, we do. And yeah, we do. And all this does is smooth it out. So some of the questions around what we're doing with contracting is everything. Professional services is where sometimes special districts and other agencies get into trouble because there is a departure from the state law requirement. And so, what happened, so you could say in a professional services contract, hey, that was never put out to bid. Or you could say this price, well, in a very legalistic sense, well, you don't have to put it out to bid, and you don't have to do that. However, what this practice does is say, you know what, in this year, everything that we've done is going out. These people have put in an RFQ, staff has vetted them, pre-negotiated the price. So if someone is front on that list of pre-approved, then it's not an issue of was this ever put out for bid. And these particularly where these work is where there's routine work, and routine work that you have. For instance, again, with finance, you may have accounting, certain specific things you know you're gonna have, and then you have this pre-qualified, pre-certified, already put out the bid. So we don't, as a board, we're not just, every time something comes up, we're trying to make a decision on what to do versus the staff have vetted it. They've already gone through the process. The board has said, okay, this list is approved, and then they're selected. And so then we do have transparency and accountability. Did I explain that right, Ricky? I know you guys try to tell me what it was.
We did. And just a note, these are, reforms and recommendations. This is not necessarily the way it's gonna flow, right?
Right.
Putting stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not, by no means, departing from the RFP process, because that's prevailing wage, that's big dollars. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I'll give you a good example, right? I'm sorry for taking time, but I have examples for just about everything. So when I came to the board and I requested to get a consultant to help me with the accounting policies, right? So that's kind of generic. I could have had somebody already pre-qualified to do that and just have the board look at it and say, okay, they're on our list, and I would like authorization to contract or approve the money or whatever, So in a simple form, that's a good example of how it would work.
And he said it was gonna save us some money. That's what he said.
It may save us
I am a good negotiator.
some efficiencies.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. Well, you guys put some meat on the bones with that one. I think Greg's right. The devil's in the kind of details, and then we'll see where we go. But I think we like it. We need to just see what we're going. I think we like it. We want to adopt something. We just have to see what it is that will.
Mr. President, if I can say something before we move on from this item real quick.
Yes.
Just real quick, not to belabor the point. I know, Greg and Mike have, made some pretty good points to this, but another concern that I would have just regard, like, I totally get where you're going with the idea of wanting to have a pre-selected pool and pre-negotiated prices for time saving measures, potentially cost saving measures, so on and so forth. But I think another issue we need to take into consideration that could potentially come up is you might run into an issue with how long these lists are good for, because companies come and go out of business. The cost of materials and labor increases over time, potentially overnight. So I think this might, I know we talked about the devil's in the details with a few of these items, but I think that might be another issue to make sure we address as well when we're putting the meat on the bone with this.
we can do an annual.
That was the intention. It's going to be an annual process, like in January of every year we have it going.
Okay. All right. Number 6. Now, this is put out here. Now, this one, but the board has a policy that already.
I was just going to say, we already have a policy that does exactly
this.
We have an ethics policy, which the board adopted about 1.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So if anything,
okay.
we already have this.
All right.
We may need to revisit it from time to time.
Okay.
We should, but we already have something that does exactly that.
Okay. So number 7.
7.
It was 7.
Huh?
And just post this one, share with the public annual budget calendar, this important financial deadline, reports and audits. Put it on the website, making sure we have it on the website, right?
This is a discussion that we've been having with our management team and our communications team about creating a transparency portal. Right now, we do have a transparency section on our website, but looking at making sure that this information stays up to date and having a more user-friendly platform for this component of our website and making sure.
Okay.
So this is up to the board and discussion whether or not we can go ahead and and decide to move in that
I
direction.
thought we discussed having a portal. Instead, we went to putting a transparency, this was some time ago, when we put the transparency,
Yeah,
policy, and
this was prior to me joining the district.
but we authorized to develop a portal.
Okay, so the board's okay with moving in that direction?
Yes.
Okay, great,
We're
thank
good.
you, appreciate it.
All right, so number 7's done, number 8.
Is this done, Rick?
Is this done?
This is.
Some of it's
We
done,
passed this.
some of it's done.
Didn't we pass the credit card policy?
Oh, yes, matter of fact, the credit card is the new CalCard program that I introduced and brought the policies up in front of the board for adoption, I think, 2 meetings ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the board is also submitting agendas documenting their activities for their reimbursement on a monthly basis. So, yes,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually,
This is done.
this is done.
Okay, all right, well, if it's done, unless Mike and Kyle have something to say about it, we can keep going, you know, let's deal with the things that aren't done. All right, so,
I think number 9 is,
number 9.
isn't that?
No, well, I think this is bigger. This here, I know personally, I think, John, Rosa, Joanne, Linda, Ricky, Clarence have all talked about the old documents that we have here. And, there has been an idea or some limited discussion on whether we would adopt and make a actual plan and investment in getting all of our files from all these different departments and putting it in the cloud-based system. Can you guys explain that? Archiving software? Yeah,
The archive, yes.
the archive and like,
There are companies that specialize in this.
mm-hmm,
Yes,
And
there are.
I've been through it with a major university.
mm-hmm,
I think it's a good idea.
mm-hmm,
It's a long-term type of project. You
Mhm.
just don't all of a sudden dump all your documents. It requires some staff training,
mm-hmm.
to do that, and you got to make some decisions whether you want it where it automatically will go to the files and pick it up like you do on Google. You can do that, or you just want it, you got to make some determination how you want to retrieve things from the system and who can retrieve it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go the full, it's going to take, maybe for our size, it wouldn't take more than a year. But it takes some time, and it can be expensive.
Yes.
The expense is worth it. Right now, I can go pull up all my files from the university
Mm-hmm.
at my tablet.
It's an extremely popular program, and districts usually, or agencies usually have something of the sort.
And your
something
insurance
safe,
rate
but
should
it
go down.
protects your drawing
Insurance
documents
rates go down.
from destruction.
He said the insurance rates will go down? Oh, okay.
Significant savings on insurance.
All right, well, if that's what it is.
One of the problems insurance companies having is what did you have? You know, you can tell us anything,
My own document
No.
storage system and all.
but that's a big effort on,
Well, I mean, I think like this kind of project, it is a long-term, project. It takes some pre-planning, and it will likely take a line item in the budget at some point. So, you know, and I think the staff just, you know, wants us to, you know, say, hey, we want you guys to start putting some meat on the bone and figuring out what we're gonna do in that area, so.
do our customer records go back for?
Our customer records is 5 to 7 years.
But, yeah, but there's stuff, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we can, start doing some research.
So we're fine with, with number 9, does anybody else think we're all pretty get that and understand what we're gonna have to do, and staff is gonna come back to us with the, game plan on how all that'll work?
Chen, I have some questions.
All right, Kyle, Mike, you guys good? So we can go to number 10?
I'm good on 9.
All right. I got questions on number 10.
I support the concept of number 10, but why we limited this to Lido Creek? Why not just say we do this for our district, and don't we do a study every 3 or 4 years on our groundwater, do a groundwater study? Valley does it. Okay, but we do, wait a minute.
Well, yeah, he's right. Valley District does the study, but it ends up in our urban water management plan, which we also do jointly with Valley and the other districts.
Okay, but my question is, why are we just narrowing it to Lido Creek?
The other basins are already agreed. So, for example,
Clarence, is your mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah, throw it over.
Turn it on.
Turn it on.
Okay. In other groundwater basins, there are already agreements for management of those basins. Obviously, doesn't have an agreement for management of that basin.
But is Lido Creek included in Valley's study?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Why are we doing, well, I would like to see a West Valley sustainable water project. Even if we have to pull it from Valley or have to do our own in certain areas, why can't we just have it for West Valley?
Good.
We can do that, and especially with Lido Creek, because that has been low on their priority list. They're focused on the population and on the hill basin. So we've had a lot of talks to them about doing something in Lido Creek.
Why don't we just ask them to extend theirs to Lido Creek?
Well,
If I can speak, I'm gonna clarify a lot.
Okay.
So, I agree. I think that we certainly, it's good and proper to have like a global look at it. I also have concerns of just being specific towards Lido Creek, because part of the problem is that Lido Creek is considered part of the Bunker Hill Basin. And so when we joined the Groundwater Council, which we finally, after a lot of changes and negotiations, part of the discussion that myself and Vice President Croker had with Valley District was also being able to address our concerns about recharge for Lido Creek specifically, because right now most of their recharge is more in the eastern portion of the Bunker Hill, which would benefit some of our wells in Bunker Hill, but a lot of ours up in the north end off of Lido Creek is again considered part of the overall basin. I mean, it's a sub-basin of the greater basin, but yes, we do need to look at that, but I agree we should really be looking at it from a global perspective. And I think that part of our discussion with Valley District was, again, that if we joined the whole agreement, which we did, that would give our staff the ability to advocate at the council meeting for opportunities to recharge, not only just in the eastern part of the also the northern portion in the Lido Creek sub-basin. So to me, I would be a little leery about being too specific here, just because we're already part of an agreement which would cover that area. We just need to advocate there for ourselves. But I do agree with what I think Dr. Young and Channing have been kind of alluding to, that we probably need to look at it more from a global perspective anyway, because we also have the North Riverside Basin, which we don't really have ways to recharge there either. And, you know, so I mean, so this is a bigger pie. I mean, we got 5 different groundwater basins we can draw from, so we should really, if we're really serious about sustainability, and I think we all are, we need to look at it as a global strategy of how are we going to work within the frameworks of each basin. Because you're right, some have pre-existing processes and some don't, but from a global perspective, what is West Valley's position on recharge and sustainability in each of these basins?
Actually, Lino Creek is by the U.S. Geological Survey a part of the basin, but in the contract that we signed, it's not listed.
But it's part of all of their models.
And it's part of their models.
And in the conversations we had with Valley District, I specifically talked about Lido Creek. And I know you weren't always able to join us for some of those times, but yeah, I mean, that was something I brought up at the time because I'm like, look, we also have Lido Creek, which is technically part of the basin, which we also draw from heavily. Now, I think one of the other aspects we have to be mindful of when it comes to the Lido Creek is that, you know, the most effective way to recharge these basins is natural rainfall, you know? And the one basin which gets recharged the fastest is Lido Creek. So yes, do we need to look at opportunities there? Yes, we do. But we also have to be cognizant that of all the basins, if we actually get a few wet years, Lido Creek, we don't really have to worry about as much as some other basins that don't get as much of the runoff and rainfall that Lido Creek does.
Well, and I want to, yes, and I want to say this, is one of the rarities where the board says to staff, we want more. They always put forward, usually we're saying give us less, so, we're saying give us more. And I know, you know, we don't have everything solidified yet, but I know at some point in the future, we will have a AGM for engineering and operations. And I think, you know, part of it is, and I agree with my colleagues that a larger sustainability plan is in order, and maybe that's part of the work that, you know, once we get that person, we'll dump it right on their lap. You know, you need to come up with a plan. There may be, you know, it kind of also gets me thinking about, you know, well, we don't want to get too far down the road, but you know, eventually a strategic plan or a 5-year plan for the agency, but.
And I maybe piggyback on that, Mr. President, we're also looking at doing a new version of the urban water management plan with all our regional partners. So a lot of these questions will also be drawn from the conclusion of that work product. Because I think we just put that on the agenda just at the last meeting. You know, is we're going to be joining with Valley and all the other agencies to do a unified plan for the whole region. And they're going to look at all these factors as far as the groundwater basin. So I think a lot of questions will get answered from from those studies. And then we can then take that to the next level in developing our strategic plan internally for how we're going to deal with what comes out of that.
So for this one, we agree that we want number 10. We want to expand number 10 to create a sustainability plan based on the work we're doing within the region, but our own plan, if that makes sense. And so this is more of an initiative that we, you know, are adopting or looking at adopting, and when we get the rewrite for this package, I hope it reflects what the board members are saying. Mike and Kyle, do you guys have anything you want to add to that, or does it? Or
no, I don't have any issues with 10.
No, I don't have an issue either.
Okay, number 11. I will say the number 11. It's a bit ambitious, to say the least. You know, I'm, you know, how do we reduce the water usage by 20% by the end of 2020?
Not only that, but literally 2 months away.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a bit ambitious at best. Maybe it kind of goes to number 10. Yeah, maybe it goes down. Maybe it kind of goes with really, it kind of, to me, it kind of goes with number 10. Number 10 is more of a thoughtful way, it kind of,
Yeah, I would suggest, because again, our urban water management plan is gonna be for a 5-year period. I'd say it's probably more realistic to say 10% over the next 5 years. I mean, even a 10% reduction is substantial and not very easy to achieve.
What does the state law require us to do? Because we went over this about 3 years ago.
Yeah, state law requires, 20% by 2020. And frankly,
We're not gonna make it.
nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks. Oh, okay.
those goals have been met. It's further those.
Yeah, no.
Wait, we already, okay, John's at the podium, he wants to say something.
As Mr. Michelle just indicated, we have already met that goal. Where this originally started from was back in 2013.
Okay.
We first kind of started the drought, the 20 by 20% was based on 2013 as a baseline.
Yeah.
The last figures that I saw for year to date right now we're at about 209. So we have already met that goal.
Oh.
So we should brag about it.
So you gave us, okay, all right, then this is good, we're meeting, I was like, well, because we're adopting this tonight, and we're working on 20% between now and December, good luck, but.
So again, if we're looking for a new goal, what is a realistic goal and a realistic time frame for that goal?
We develop a plan by next year.
So by the end of the year, you'll bring us a proposal for a new goal and timeline.
Yeah, let's see if we get one by the end of the year, but I kind of see it with number 10 a little bit.
Or the issue with the concept, again, I'm just concerned about the timeline.
How do we get there? Okay,
As
but
far as the state requirement, we have met that goal.
we have met that goal.
Correct, so we want to get that.
Sustainability.
Okay, yes. All right, and then how do we improve on it? So that's something that, again, when we get whoever that person will be, that'll be on their plate. Number 12. This is, number 12, this one, I like this one. It's all about the kids.
It's definitely an ambitious idea. My only concern with this one, Mr. President, I was actually speaking to the team about similar language in the what plan was that? Looking at the strategic, the internal clarification plan
for our public affairs department, and some of the questions.
Well, let them.
Yeah, so, in particular, my concern is, I'm not sure if we're the right people to be developing curriculum, particularly for, schools and classrooms. As I pointed out to Nassim, I said, there's probably only a few organizations out there who are really qualified to maybe do anything like that, maybe like Aqua, or maybe like the Water Education Foundation. But my concern is just putting us in that position, I'm not sure is probably a good thing, because again, I don't think that we're the right size agency to try to develop our own curriculum, and again, I don't really want to be in a position trying to push curriculum onto schools. Now, the basic concept of doing more on education, particularly for the youth, I have no issue with that. I'm not too sure about a trailer just yet. I mean, financially, I'm sure Ricky was, they're kind of counting pennies and quarters at this point, but conceptually, I'm not opposed to trying to do more educationally. I'm just not sure if this is really something we do in-house or something we get from, again, a larger, more qualified agency to help. Those are some of my concerns.
Let me finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me bring about a broader question, and we may want to spend some time. I like it.
I would appreciate it if you can give me a call. My telephone number is 818-402. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
The question for discussion, I haven't made my mind up on it. Is this mission free? Is this getting us so far away from what we are supposed to do that as a water agency, fine, we do things like calendars for the schools, I think is appropriate in education, but I'm thinking in my mind every time I see something like this, are we just getting too far away from our mission? It's a thought. I'm not taking a position yet, but it is a thought. I'm pro-education most of the time, but I don't know. I haven't resolved it in my own mind.
Well, I know other districts, and I understand what Greg is saying. And it's a balancing act, like if Aqua had a toolkit, and they said, well, you know, we said, all right, well, they have a toolkit on a conservation curriculum already, and we're gonna get to them and maybe go into the schools, and maybe there's a project we have. I've also seen some districts that have, now, some of them, as you state, are bigger than ours. Like I saw West Basin, they have a video and a whole set of training modules just for high school and junior high school age kids, where you can do a virtual tour online, and there's a number of things that I don't know if we have the resources and the ability to do all of that. But I think, you know, I assume, and I see Mr. Faruqi ready to answer the question about it, is that there, you know, us going on record saying that we want to have some program that we're educating the students in our local area, I think, you know, but finding the right one that fits an agency of our size with our kind of resources. And we may not have the, you know, we're not Metropolitan Water District where we can just go and say, hey, so I don't, you know, my question would just be the implementation and what you guys come up with over the course of time that we can actually say, all right, this is a line item in the budget that we approve.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, directors. And one of the things that actually we've been working on is working with various other water districts and doing virtual tours, and how exactly we're adapting to COVID, the life of COVID-19, and making sure that education, water education continues. And in regards to building a curriculum, Director Reese Gray Young did mention that we're not necessarily the individuals to build the curriculum, and we can look at other agencies, Aqua, AWWA, that maybe have some kind of information and curriculum that we can partner with local schools. However, when it comes to the actual implementation of it, if it's okay, I'd like to work with the committee and find out what exactly that balance is. This is very important when it comes to making sure we teach our students and our children on water conservation and what exactly it is and what goes into making sure, you know, good quality, high quality water comes out of the tap, and also bills for eventually individuals and students that say, hey, you know, I want to go into a career in the water industry right here in my community. So if it's okay, I'd like to work with the committee to find something that works, a balance.
Yeah, that sounds great. Sounds great, Mr. Faruqi. So with these, I guess just as a matter of process, we, not tonight, but if we have a package of reforms, and there's still some more to go, I assume what we're saying is we're either will adopt or we're creating initiatives to address, like, for instance, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, number 7, number 8 is already done, so we've done that, and so number 9, number 10, but we have the change, as you said, we're expanding it, and then number 11 and 12. So what we would do is, from this point, is say, we're either going to, you know, develop specific policies or make these part of the initiatives for our future. And that's, if we were to bring something back, all we're saying is, at this point, we agree to agree. But the actual finalized policies or the finalized initiatives would have to come back to being adopted individually. Does that make sense for everybody?
I mean, I was just going to say, I mean, I think at this point, some of these may be prepared faster than others.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to wait until we
Right.
get them all together. I think to quickly have to put something together, let's take the matter up, on one at a time as they're ready to go.
As they're ready. Well, there's two things. We'll just say broadly, you know, we're expecting as an agency to adopt, create policies or have initiatives in these areas.
Yes.
And then we're going to authorize the staff to bring us back their specific proposals.
But there were some of these that there was a clear consensus on.
Yes, oh, no, I'm great with listening, there's some I included, there were some, there's some that we have some clear consensus. Now, we have this too, because, this is critical too, the Board of Directors Policy Manual is 21 pages, and then there's,
Mr. President.
Article 8, then Ordinance 86.
Before we talk about that, can we also say that for some of those policies, can they also flow through the appropriate standing committee?
Oh, yes.
When it's appropriate?
Yes. So what we'll do is, you know, we'll get something.
I didn't mean to cut you off, I
No,
just want to make sure.
right.
It's clear.
And so what we'll do is, eventually it'll be packaged up that we're just agreeing to say we're going to work on these things or pass initiatives, and then the staff is going to have to come back and bring us
Correct.
the plan or the policy or the program. Right, and work through the committees to finalize them.
Sorry about that.
Right, so we're good. And then, all right, so, ordinance, well, we can, either one, ordinance 86, I think it is, the red line on what has changed. Now, you all know, Dr. Young, you've been here a while, so ordinance 85 has been the ordinance, of the Board of Directors, and so 86 would be the new number.
Right.
I know Peggy and Greg worked a whole lot on redlining this after the fact. So,
I reviewed it. I'm okay for this to go to the board.
yeah.
Everybody has read it. I reviewed it.
Yeah, so that's all I see. I just want.
You give a synopsis?
Yes.
Of the changes?
Yep.
Please?
Because they're just the red lines.
Okay.
Just the red lines. If
Yeah.
it's not a red line, you don't need to do it.
Yeah, so for ordinance 86, there was just a few small changes, mainly revolving around, outside meetings and what that constitutes. I work closely with Ricky to make sure that we're properly capturing our new process as far as, you know, working with the board secretary to make sure that we get, a agenda for any meetings, like if you meet with staff or other electeds or whatever locally. Now, if you're looking to go beyond just locally, and it's not something that's on our normal schedule, we established a process by which that would need to be reviewed by the full board, for consideration. And this is just kind of, to kind of go in the vein of more transparency, so that is always clearly stipulated that if you're looking to go to a conference outside of the area, that is just, reviewed by the board and presented publicly. So those were some of the changes there. I know Peggy also updated the dollar amount for our current, rate as far as board members. And then the only other portion which we did also add was we added a new standing committee. And I did want to briefly touch on that. So we added a policy both Director Crowther and myself, so often is the case is that by the time we are looking at a policy, it's generally because the policy has already failed in some miserable and a spectacular way. So what it is we're proposing is a committee who would work with all the department heads to establish a reasonable schedule to review all existing policies. So this is not a policy writing committee as much as this is a proactive committee that works with each department and leadership of the district to review our policies on a regular basis. If as a part of our review, we feel that a particular policy may be outdated or need to be corrected, we would then kick it to the correct other standing committee. So I just want that to be very clear. This committee is not designed to write policy as much as just proactively review existing policies so that we can actually start getting ahead of the curve and not so much just reacting to when policies fail, but trying to be proactive. So that was the big changes. Otherwise, it's pretty much verbatim of what was existing currently in Ordinance 85.
I agree with your concept that we need to somehow have a mechanism to review policies, but to ask the committee to do that, that's more of a staff function.
Well, but part of the reason we decided that we wanted to do a whole separate committee is that right now with our current committee, I mean, particularly, I know Kyle and I mean, we're on engineering, our agenda is quite hefty most of the time. We don't have time in our normal meetings to be proactively looking at existing policies. I mean, we just don't have time. Now, staff brings us one which is currently, hey, we had a major failure and we need to fix this. Then obviously we take it up. Again, it's the idea of having a committee of the board working with staff to proactively look forward to try to catch these things before they cause an issue, and then kick it to the committee, be like, hey, is this something you guys want to look at revising or not? You as the committee make the decision, not us. We're just working with staff to look at those policies, because the problem is, I don't think any of us have been really proactively looking at policies. Again, it's always reactionary. It's been reactionary. I think since the day I got here with you, Cliff, and I can't speak for you the years before I got here, but it just seems like there's so many policies out there, most of the staff doesn't even know what it is we have. So I think instead of trying to work within the existing structure as far as looking at policies, have a committee that works. That's all that's on the agenda. Engineering, we're going to look at 2 of your policies tonight. We're going to look at them and be like, okay, is this still good? Is this still valid? Does this still make sense? And if so, great. We'll mark down that we reviewed it on this date and move on to the next thing. But again, if it's something which we feel... I understand the concept. It's hard for a committee to do that. But and the county has turned you into a real bureaucrat.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a goal or
double-edged sword.
Anyway, so there were the changes.
So I don't have an issue. So I just wanted to clarify here with ENF. So for instance, if a director wishes to attend an outside meeting or conference not listed on A, B, or C, or covered under section 204F, the director must receive prior approval from the full board. The director shall provide details of the meeting, including dates. And so a director shall be able to attend meetings with staff or some elected officials from other districts or local community events or functions and claim it. So with E is only pertains, like, for instance, if you had to go meet with the director from Chino Bay. I don't know, just picking one.
Well, that's under F.
That would go under F.
I'll give you a good example.
So E, I think I get you. I'm just making sure everybody, E is really dealing with meetings that, really more of the outside conferences, outside, more travel type of meetings too. Right, we just need to clearly, is it outside of like Southern California? I just,
Well, I mean,
I understand what you're saying, but I just want to make
Do
sure.
you have a clarification?
Yeah, so we can clarify what the definition of local is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if that's what you're kind of getting at. Because
Mhm.
again, I was trying to split off between E and F, what is local, and just kind of, hey, you're just having a quick outside meeting versus, hey, I want to go to, you know, Las Vegas to go to the Water Smart Conference, which is not listed on our normal schedule,
Right.
which I know Vice President Crowther and I have been to in the past.
Right.
So again, just trying to separate out what
Okay.
just kind of falls under the general blanket
Let's,
about
let's,
that.
let's define local real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Local is within our district of
Yeah.
5 miles outside. That's the way local is defined. Where is it defined?
Well,
It's
I mean,
defined
Local.
in,
Local.
the Brown Act. Where you,
Well,
that's
that's when
local.
you have 3 or more,
No.
Okay.
This is local meetings. If you go to a meeting,
well, if I go and I meet with a director from Inland Empire Utilities Commission, where's their office?
in Chino,
In Chino. So that type of meeting with that director over there or that staff person, I don't think that Section E,
I'm just saying,
okay.
I'm just
Section E
saying,
is
I didn't
trying
make the definition.
No, I don't think Section E is trying to get at that
I'm
type
just
of meeting.
saying-
I think the example Greg was saying, hey, you pick it up, you're going to Oregon, or you're going to Las Vegas.
Or whatever.
Well, actually,
What?
I'm looking for,
Okay.
and I know it's in here, I'm just trying to find it, but there is a provision that's already there as far as, you know, if you can claim like the day before, but you have to go at least 60 miles away or something. I would say maybe the same kind of definition, if it's
60
within
miles.
60 miles, it's considered local, but if it's beyond that, it would be non-local maybe. I mean, that's a
Yes,
suggestion.
okay.
You know.
Well, we just
That's
need to
fair.
clear up the language.
Oh, no,
60
no,
days.
I have no issue with that.
60 miles, whatever that is. If that's if that complies with the Brown Act, Mr. General Counsel, I definitely, outside of that, defining what local is, I'm pretty much fine with this. Mike or Kyle, do you guys have any, questions, suggestions, changes? I mean, of course, you'd have to update the back part of this, the Secretary has said.
Shannon, it's actually in section E, so right before E, it talks about how if the meeting is greater than 40 miles from the district headquarters, you can basically get kind of that travel day as far as compensation. So maybe we use that 40 miles as the same definition.
Okay.
That's already in the.
Yeah, no,
That
it's already
works
in
with
there, but we can specify
That
local within 40 miles or.
That works
something
with
to
me.
that effect.
40 miles, well,
Shannon,
if you gotta go to downtown LA, that's 58.
Shannon,
We can make it, or I was just
Okay.
suggesting because it's already in there.
All right, yes, Mike.
I thought we were going to look into a straight per diem, rather than try to have everybody produce receipts and all this other stuff to make it a lot easier. Cause there's a set amount, generally by the state, where you get paid so much for breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. And you either get gas mileage if you take your own car, or, obviously if you're not going to drive, then, the district's going to send you on a plane and then do your lodging. But they just give you a flat per diem for your meals. And that way you take out all the errors on credit cards, you take out all the errors on alcohol. It is what it is. It makes it a lot easier. I know when I worked for the city, we just gave straight per diems to the employees, and that was the end of it. They didn't have to worry about receipts or anything else.
Mr. CFO,
CFO.
Yeah.
I would.
because that's per diem, and I know that was something that's been brought up before.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Taylor. That's a very good point. Per diems are something that I also would prefer.
Mm-hmm.
And it is included in our new purchasing and travel policy for staff.
Okay.
But if that's the direction of the board to add that to have two travel policies, one for staff,
Mm-hmm.
one for board members.
Mm-hmm.
We can do that. The way the per diem works, like Dr. Taylor said, is a flat amount based on the city that you're traveling to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's managed or established by the federal government. You would basically just look it up and you'll see how much it is. But there's no advance. You spend your money and we'll give it back to you after your travel. So make that very clear.
Well, that's Ricky, I gotta interrupt you on that. Our city always gave you the advance. If you didn't go on the trip, then you turned the check back in, but you got an advance, so you had the money to use while you were down there for your per diem.
Yeah, that was practice in the past. I don't know if that's still happening, but there's a lot of agencies are not doing that just because of the vulnerability of misuse of funds. So in my policy that we've written, I did not include advance in there. I wouldn't recommend that. Simple as that. So anyway, it's something that I favor, and if the board decides to include that into the board's travel policy, I would be more than happy to add that in there.
All right.
Hey, Ricky, this is Kyle. Hey, Ricky, can we?
Dr. Young first, we think.
I've lived over 30 years of my life and traveled with the GSA policy. It covers everything. I mean, it covers what city you go to, how much you can pay for lodging, how much you pay for breakfast, lunch, dinner, miscellaneous things, and it does give you an advance, but the advance is very quick. It's based on how much you travel. It's what they advance on. If you spend, I was spending 50% of one of my jobs traveling, you got advances continuing. But you almost have to have a clerk to keep up with it. I mean, it's, so the GSA is the best model to use because they've worked out all the little things in there. You can tell, you know. And you can use that to negotiate with your hotel.
And you can
I'm
also
I'm on a government travel, and this is what the government is willing to pay y'all.
Yep. And as a governmental employee, when you book your hotel, you identify yourself as exempt from the taxes. You just pay flat rubric.
Tom.
Yes, sir.
No, you had something to say, Dr. Young had already started talking.
No, you're good. Yeah, I was just going to compliment that. I was going to say that, Ricky, yeah, if you can look into that, because I know, like, if, for example, in the city of Fontana, when we do any out-of-town traveling, you know, we have a set per diem rate for X amount of dollars for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If we're gone for, 2 or 3 days, they'll send us a check, on our way out of town, here's for all your expenses. And I think that might, you have to obviously check with accounting and the CFO, so you would obviously know. I would assume that would alleviate a little bit of stress on your part as far as receipts and all that kind of stuff. So I would at least request that we at least look into this option and maybe bring it back for further discussion. But I think Dr. Taylor might be onto a good idea there.
Okay, and I know it's a little bit, we were still talking about what's local, but and so an additional item to the reform is the board is interested in setting a per diem policy for travel. And so we want to make sure we include that and figure out what we need to do to develop the policy. I know we've done one for staff. We as a board want to also set one for ourselves. So that's an additional reform that we just came up with tonight.
So the question is, do we want to just go to a strict per diem, or is it like an either or? You could choose the per diem, or I mean, because again, we just kind of went with the existing language and just
Well,
updated.
per diem I don't know if per diem was in, I don't know if that's in the policy manual.
No, it's not.
No, it's in the,
It's not.
it's in the ordinance.
It's in the ordinance?
If we
Okay.
never get
No,
it,
it's not.
But
It's not.
again, do we want to?
We wanted to do per diem. I think if we want to add per diem, let's add per diem. I'm not against it.
But is it replacing or are we just adding it as an option?
Well, I think it's,
Because again, I mean, a lot of this language is based on, you know,
Check.
direct reimbursed for all expenses. So again.
all expenses
It
or
says that in 204, actually.
204 is, all expenses. Mike,
So like I said, we'll
Mike.
have to modify it if you want to go to per diem, if that's what the board wants to do, but that's why I'm just asking clarification.
Okay, my recommendation would be one or the other, because if you do both, it's gonna make it a nightmare for finance. If you do the per diem, it'll make it a heck of a lot easier for finance, because they don't have to worry about the receipts and collecting them and auditing them. They already know in advance exactly what you're gonna get, how much it is. They cut a check, they give it to you. When you go there, if you wanna blow it all one night, that's up to you. If you want to use it like you're supposed to every day, that's up to you. In the end, you've got enough money to do what you got to do to survive while you're there, because they gave you what the amount is that you're expected to get. So it just makes it a lot easier for the water district. It'll take a lot less stress and time away from our finance department.
Yep, so,
I suggest per diem.
per diem.
The GSA per
So
diem.
we just want to look, so that's in addition to this policy, is 204 per diem.
Well, we're going to have to revise the provision to
No.
reflect per diem.
Yeah, and then we still have the thing about local. I would go with something like within 100 miles, but if it's,
40 pounds or whatever.
or, well, we gotta make it at least tell less.
So six,
Okay.
do you make it
75. 75. Let's hope that. 75.
75 is fair.
75. 75 is fair.
Are you
Over
talking,
75.
are you talking about, hotels?
No,
No, we're talking about travel. If you have an outside meeting as a director, if it's within 75 miles or before, you fall under policy, F. And then if it's an overnight stay that's, not listed, is considered an outside meeting or conference that's not listed in our schedule, A, B, or C, then you have to follow the policies and get approval by the board.
Okay.
All right, okay, is those changes and modifications, so subject to those changes and modifications, but add that on the tally, whoever's keeping tally of all the things that we're trying to do.
but we're taking that to the board.
Yeah, well, once it gets, fixed up, but yeah, that's the direction I understood.
We'll have to work on.
Yeah,
The ordinance will go to the board once we make the correction.
yeah, and then,
It's going to affect a few other areas, but yeah, I can work with Peggy and Chris.
yeah, yeah. And then, finally, this is the Board of Directors Policy Manual. Okay, this largely, again, I want to thank Greg and Kyle for doing the work on this one, which, I like it. I think you all looked at several different policy manuals from different, can you give some of the background?
Correct, so,
Some of the background?
you know, this is an item we had talked about, and I know it's something I think probably all four of us, with the exception of you, Mr. President, have already been talking about for some time, that we need to do this, and just because of the, often the tyranny of the urgent, it just kind of falls off, and we just didn't quite get to it, so we really kind of want to tackle it. But yes, we looked at, I think, about 5 different board manuals from water districts across the state, and borrowed heavily from quite a few of them in different places, but really probably the best way to maybe describe it is You know, for a very long time, we've basically been driving on like a dirt path with nothing to keep us from going off into the ditch, because basically we've kind of operated with very little written down, because really the only thing we do have formalized is just what's in the ordinance right now, which is pretty bare bones. It really doesn't go into too much about the governance of the board as much as it focuses on just the compensation and meetings. So we really kind of wanted to not only pave the road, but put up guardrails and signs. Is probably the way I would put it, and it's just kind of adding a level of formality as far as how the board is to operate, what are the rights as board members, what is the proper role as board members, what are the reporting requirements for authority, things like that. To, again, just kind of make sure that the road is paved and that we've got guardrails and that we got the signage so that, you know, things go in a proper process. And ultimately, something we've talked about, myself and Kyle, is that, you know, as board members, there should be no surprises as board members. That's been a principle we've talked about in the past, but this is really reflective of our attempts to try to put something together that's going to help us achieve that kind of consistent, thoughtful approach to governance.
I like, there's some of it, but a few that I think we need to, I don't know if everybody has a chance to look at this. This one's a little more meaty.
I've read it.
There's a, well, you have any questions or?
No, I'm okay with passing to the board for a vote.
Okay, to, 8.4.
Mr. President, can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Okay, it's getting late, and I think that all of us should sit down and go over this and just spend one meeting on this separately, because this thing it's a lot to go through. And I think that you're gonna have questions. I know I've got a couple questions myself. I don't know about Kyle. And I think that we should bring this back and just spend one meeting on this alone.
Okay, I'm in agreement, but I know that we need to get this done, so, well, even if, I don't know if we're gonna set it today, but we will set it at our next regular meeting, and we need to have it within, by the end of October, if that's fair, the parameters, if we were to.
Yeah.
We're gonna set the date at our next regular meeting, and we're gonna have the meeting to follow up on this by the end of October. Is that fair for everybody?
Yeah.
So we're not off. Okay? Okay, all right. I like it. I know we're going to adopt a manual nonetheless, and get some time to look at it. This one is a little, the other one you gave was like 3 pages.
You know, and we went out our way to make it fairly comprehensive on purpose. So, yeah, we definitely want to take the time if you all have questions.
All right, so everybody just come with a date in mind for a Thursday, well, no, Tuesday, not a Thursday.
Tuesday.
A Tuesday in October, so we'll come back
for
at our next meeting next Thursday.
I'm not adding
For
no more
Tuesday.
meetings on Thursday.
No more meetings on Thursday.
Well, I said no more. We got
the ones we have, right? No more meetings on Thursday, especially with the Raiders playing the way they play.
That's right.
No more meetings on Thursday.
Oh man, you gotta throw that cheap shot in there, bro. Come on, man.
I wouldn't say the Dolphins.
The Dolphins are playing next Thursday,
Oh, okay.
but they're gonna lose. So
All right, with that being said, there's a motion to adjourn.
Wow.
All right, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right. Wait, did anybody have anything else to say? I know I hit that gavel quick.
Yes. I'll see you later.
Yeah, before we give Robert any credit to talk about that Cowboy comeback, let's get out of here.
That's right. Let's hurry